Your wife is screaming. Not the scream of someone who is frightened. The scream of someone who is seeing something that cannot be there. There is a difference, and you understand the difference immediately because you are standing in your own kitchen in your own house on what your body insists is an ordinary Tuesday morning, and the woman who has slept beside you for 11 years is backed against the counter with her hand over her mouth looking at you like you are something that crawled out of the ground. You say her name. She screams again. Louder. The specific register of a person whose mind has rejected the input it is receiving and is responding from somewhere below reason. You look down at yourself. You are wearing the gray Henley you sleep in. Your feet are bare on the kitchen tile. Your coffee mug is on the counter where you left it last night. Everything in this kitchen is exactly where everything in this kitchen should be. You are exactly where you should be. You are home. You are standing in your home on a Tuesday morning and your wife is screaming at you like you are a ghost. Your daughter appears in the doorway. 8 years old. Her hair is the specific morning chaos you have smoothed down with your hand every school day for 3 years. She looks at you. Her face does something you have never seen a child's face do. It goes completely still in the way that faces go still when the thing they are seeing does not fit any category the mind has built for processing the world. She says, "Daddy is dead." She says it the way children say true things. Without drama. Without uncertainty. As a fact that exists in her world with the same solidity as the kitchen table and the school bus and the specific shape of Tuesday morning. Daddy is dead. She knows this. Everyone knows this. The only person in this kitchen who does not appear to know this is you. You put your coffee mug down. You look at your wife. You look at your daughter. You look at your hands. You are here. You are completely, physically, undeniably here. And everyone who knows you is certain that here is somewhere you cannot be. Chapter 1. 3 years of a life you were not in. They show you the grave on the second day. Your wife, whose name is Sarah and who spent the first 18 hours alternating between hyperventilation and a stillness that frightened you more than the screaming, drives you to a cemetery 20 minutes from the house in complete silence, and parks on the gravel path and points without getting out of the car. The headstone has your name. Your full name, middle name included. The one you hated and that Sarah used only when she was either very angry or very tender, and the using of it now in stone feels like both simultaneously. Your date of birth. A date of death that is 3 years and 4 months ago, almost to the week. And beneath the date's a line that Sarah told you later she chose herself after 3 days of not being able to choose anything. He was here completely. You stand in front of it for a long time. The ground is solid under your feet. The stone is cold when you touch it. Your name is cut into it with the permanent indifference of engraved things. You think about the date of death and try to locate that date in your memory, and find it with the same ordinary clarity you find any other day. A Thursday. You were in the office. You had a sandwich from the place on the corner that always got your order slightly wrong. You drove home. You made dinner. Nothing about that Thursday feels like a last day. Sarah tells you what they were told. A car accident on the highway outside the city. Your car. Identified by the plates, by the registration, by the specific personal contents of the vehicle that were recovered, and that she identified herself in a room she describes only as very small and very bright. The body was not recovered. This detail she delivers with the specific careful flatness of someone who has practiced saying it until the saying no longer required managing. No body. You hold this. No body means an identification built from objects and plates, and the assumption that a car destroyed at that velocity on that section of highway at that time of night could not have produced a survivor. An assumption so reasonable that no one questioned it. An assumption that 3 years and 4 months of a headstone with your name on it has calcified into fact. You ask where you have been. She looks at you with the expression of someone who has been waiting for this question, and who does not have an answer, and who finds the not having an answer more frightening than almost anything else that has happened in the past 48 hours. She says that is what she needs to know too. Chapter 2. What you remember and what is missing. You remember everything up to a point. This is the specific horror of your situation, and you examine it with the methodical attention of someone who understands that the examination is the only tool currently available. Your memory does not have the clean edges of the absent Saturday night you had heard described in other contexts. Your memory has a seam. A place where one version of your life ends and another begins, and the transition between them is present, but wrong in the way that a scar is present but wrong, evidence of a joining that should not have been necessary. You remember the Thursday. The sandwich. The drive home. Dinner. You remember going to bed. You remember the specific quality of sleep that follows an ordinary day, deep and structureless and complete. And then you remember waking up. Not here. Not in your house. In a room you have never been in before, in a city that took you 3 weeks to identify, with a name you answered to that was not your name and a life built around you with a specific furnished quality of something assembled rather than accumulated. 3 years and 4 months of a life that was not yours. A job you were competent at without knowing how you knew the skills it required. An apartment whose lease was in a name you have no memory of choosing. Neighbors who called you by that name with the comfortable familiarity of people who have known someone long enough to stop seeing them clearly. A routine so thoroughly installed that you performed it daily without questioning its origins the way you do not question the origins of knowing how to tie your shoes. You do not know how you got to that city. You do not know who built the life you woke into. You do not know whether you went there or were put there, and the distinction between those two possibilities is the thing you cannot stop turning over because one of them means something happened to you and the other means something happened inside you, and the consequences of each are entirely different. What you know is this. 3 years ago, a car with your plates and your registration and the contents of your life was destroyed on a highway. You were not in it. Someone needed you to appear to be in it. Someone built you a different life in a different city and installed you in it with enough thoroughness that you lived inside it for 3 years without surfacing. And then something broke. Some mechanism that was maintaining the installation failed or was removed, and you woke up on a Tuesday morning in your own kitchen in your own gray Henley, and your wife screamed because the dead do not make coffee. Chapter 3. Who needed you gone? You go to the police on day 4. Not your local precinct. A detective at a federal level whose name you find through a journalist contact of Sarah's, who covers organized crime and whose reaction when Sarah describes the situation is the specific controlled reaction of someone who has a category for what they are hearing and does not want to show that they have a category for it. The detective's name is Reyes. She meets you in an office with no windows and she looks at you for a long moment before she says anything, the way people look at something they need to verify is real before they invest in its reality. Then she opens a folder. The folder contains your name. Not the name from the apartment in the other city. Your name. And beside it, connected by a line drawn in red ink, a case number from 3 years and 5 months ago, 1 month before the accident on the highway, that you were not aware of and that Reyes explains with the careful precision of someone who has assembled this explanation from pieces collected over a long time. You were a witness. You did not know you were a witness. You attended a professional conference 14 months before the accident, and you were present in a corridor at a specific time when a conversation occurred between two people whose names Reyes does not say aloud but writes on a piece of paper and slides across the table to you. You look at the names. One of them you recognize. The recognition arrives with the specific physical quality of something that was always in your body waiting for the right context to surface. You were in a corridor. You heard something. You did not know you heard something that mattered. But someone who was in that corridor and who knew what the something meant decided that your continued visible existence in the world was a problem that required a solution. The solution was the highway and the car and the headstone with the line Sarah chose. He was here completely. The installation in the other city was not mercy. It was management. A witness death requires a body or a reasonable certainty of a body. A disappeared person generates investigations. A dead person with a grave and a headstone and a wife who identified his belongings in a small bright room generates nothing except grief. You were not hidden. You were filed. Under deceased. In a category that asks no further questions. Chapter 4. The Thing That Broke. Reyes tells you what broke on day 7 of your return, after 3 days of interviews and a process of verification that she describes as unprecedented in her experience and that involves medical professionals and document analysts and a DNA comparison against a sample taken from a hairbrush in your old bathroom that Sarah kept because Sarah kept everything. The people who managed your installation used a firm. A specific private firm that operated in the space between legitimate security consulting and the kind of work that legitimate security consulting provides cover for. The firm handled the installation, the identity construction, the maintenance of the alternative life. They did this for clients who needed people managed in the specific way you were managed. Disappeared without the complications of actual disappearance. The firm closed 14 months ago. Not voluntarily. A federal investigation into a separate matter produced evidence of the firm's activities as a secondary finding, and the firm's principals made decisions that resulted in the rapid dissolution of the operation and the termination of all active arrangements. Including yours. The mechanism maintaining your installation was not removed deliberately. It was abandoned. The people managing the alternative life around you simply stopped managing it. And without management, the installation began to degrade in ways that you experienced as a growing wrongness, a friction between what you were performing and what you were, until the friction produced a breaking point on a Monday night when you went to sleep in an apartment in a city that was not yours and woke up on a Tuesday morning in your kitchen. You think about the wrongness. You think about 3 years of performing a life that was assembled rather than accumulated, and the specific texture of that performance that you felt as ordinary dissatisfaction, as the ambient sense that something in your existence was not correctly calibrated, without ever locating the source of the feeling because the source was the entire structure and you were inside it. Chapter 5. What Tuesday Morning Costs. Sarah does not ask you to leave. This surprises you, and then it does not surprise you because Sarah is the person who chose he was here completely for a headstone, and who kept a hairbrush for 3 years, and who screamed when you appeared in her kitchen not from rejection, but from the specific shock of a grief being asked to reverse itself, and grief does not reverse easily or cleanly regardless of the reason. You sit at the kitchen table on a Thursday evening 3 weeks after the Tuesday, and you drink coffee, and your daughter does her homework across the table from you with the focused seriousness of a child who has decided to treat the inexplicable as ordinary because ordinary is what she needs it to be, and children are better at deciding what to need than adults give them credit for. You think about the names on Reyes's piece of paper. The investigation is ongoing. The firm's dissolution did not dissolve the people who used its services, and the conversation in the corridor that started everything is now a formal statement in a federal file, and the person whose name you recognized when Reyes slid the paper across the table is currently the subject of attention from people whose attention he has spent considerable resources trying to avoid. You think about the headstone. He was here completely. You think about what Sarah meant when she chose it and what it means now, and whether the past tense is still the right tense or whether the tense needs adjusting, and you decide the tense is fine. You were here completely. You are here completely. The 3 years in between were someone else's construction, and you lived inside them because you had no access to the information that would have told you otherwise, and now you have the information, and you are back at the kitchen table on a Thursday evening, and your daughter is doing homework, and the coffee is the right temperature. You look at your hands. The same hands you looked at on a Tuesday morning when your wife was screaming and your daughter said Daddy is dead in the flat certain voice of a child stating a fact. The same hands that touched a headstone in a cemetery and found it cold. The same hands that turned a piece of paper over in an office with no windows and recognized a name that put 3 years of your life into a context that finally, completely, made sense. You are here. You have always been here. Someone went to considerable effort to make here somewhere you could not be and failed in the specific way that things fail when they are built by people who believed the building was permanent and did not account for the possibility that what they buried was still breathing. Your daughter looks up from her homework. She asks if you can help with a problem. You say yes. You pull the notebook toward you. You look at the problem. You begin.